You're listening to Rock and Roll Grad School with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling. Consider yourselves officially enrolled.
Hello, kiddies. We are going to have a good time together. We're talking with AXL. I think that's ALX. ALX from Love Crushed Velvet, which is kind of the band. He's sort of like one of those Trent Reznor,
man of all talents.
yes. Well, but the thing where like the one person is the band. You're Connor
Right.
Obst and
Yes.
you're such like that. Bright Eyes.
I mean, there are other band members, but they switch out.
Yes,
The core.
like Nine Inch Nails. This is what we were just talking about.
I know.
Okay.
All right, you're right.
Just need to
Sorry,
make it-
I'm complicating things.
But they're not out on the road just yet, but they've got a ton of cool music worth checking out online. Here's what I wanted to tell you about, and I completely forgot, and I've been fighting the urge to text you. So
Okay.
we are in Florida on vacation, but when we got a rental car, we were looking for get us the cheapest thing, and the rental car company had an option that said manager special.
Of course.
Gets better. It's the lowest price on a car, and they'll just give you whatever they have in stock. And we went in thinking we're going to get something super small, and we did, and it looks like a clown car. But,
Awesome.
and here's the thing that the elder and I are so excited about. This car, it's a Ford car. It is a Spark. And so the two of us want to call it the Ronald.
Of course.
The rest of the family wants to call it the Mystery Machine because we didn't know what it was. But
Oh, I mean, that's not bad either, but I gotta go with Team Ronald.
the Ronald, come on. So
Right?
I feel like all of a
That's
sudden,
amazing.
and I
You
know
guys have to do some sort of Sparks pose in front of it, like a picture.
I'm planning
just
on
for
doing the Ron
posterity.
dance just straight into the pool as soon as we hang up.
Yes.
That's my plan. And you should do the same
Perfect plan.
in Vegas.
I probably will,
Yes,
but I would probably, obviously, I would do the Russell dance
and that's
and
true.
toss my hair
Yes, exactly. Because you're in cool places.
and open my shirt. Yeah, I'm in cool places. And have some Hello Kitty toast.
Exactly. But I feel like all of a sudden we've gotten to the thick of like summer vacation and summer touring. And I think today's the equinox, I believe.
It is. Good day to go to Stonehenge.
I know. Is your mom there?
No, but I've been there twice on this day.
Just an abundance of druids.
Oh yeah, and hippies
Yeah.
and patchouli and
Yes.
lots of body hair.
Yeah. It's a lot.
You know,
But I just feel like all of a sudden we're in the midst of summer touring and it's all the good things about summer. And I think part of it is that for Father's Day I got two gifts. I got an edger, so
ooh, that's
suck
fun.
it, the rest of my neighborhood.
Yes.
Mom's gonna put you to shame. And then also tickets to go see our friend John Doe and
Yes.
the rest of X and the Psychedelic Furs.
Oh my
So
God, everything.
and it's in like 2 weeks, so I will be pretty in pink. It's gonna be great.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So
We'll see.
yeah, Exene, John, and I are all gonna hang out. It's gonna be very pretty in pink.
That's amazing.
Now,
And I had to miss Steely Dan because of Sting.
so did he play everything you would wanted? Did he do any police songs?
Tons,
Really?
tons.
So he knows where his
Yeah,
bread
it
gets
was.
buttered.
Yeah, but he was adorable. Like he was so charming, and I mean, I've seen him, but I saw him with Paul Simon. But
Was there a
this was
lute
just a much small.
involved?
Not this time, but I would thought lots of harmonica though. He was super funny. Like the Coliseum's pretty small, so that was cool. He was like very charming, very sweet, very kind. He apologized to have to play new songs. He's like, I know this is the part you all are gonna hate. I'm playing you some new stuff.
Did he do the stuff from the
Um,
Shaggy record?
No, I was waiting. I was waiting because it was his last night for Shaggy to come out. I was like, oh, come on, because I would have just sent you a picture and just
My
been
God.
like,
You wish you were
you were
here.
really
Yeah.
cool. I mean, he made me really be really pleased about my chair. because he had on this great yellow suit and these great red shoes, and they were like boxing shoes, by the way, and a black t-shirt, and he looked so phenomenal that I'm like, that tantra stuff's working for you. So
Yeah,
having the chair, perhaps I too will look good at Sig's age.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, but it was great. He didn't play my favorite song, but that's okay.
Which is
Don't stand so close to me.
So Lonely.
He did play So Lonely.
That's one of my favorites.
It's a good one. He didn't play either Synchronicity.
I'm okay with that.
Him too. No, he opened with an acoustic Roxanne, an acoustic Roxanne, but then one of the like second encores, he did like a Roxanne medley, like
Oh,
several different styles of Roxanne.
okay.
All were very good, but it was a little too much Roxanne for me.
Mm,
I was like, I've had Roxanne several times now, so
right.
maybe I could have a little, young teacher.
True, but when
Be
I
better
saw
for me.
but when I saw Neil Diamond, he played Sweet Caroline 3 times in fall.
Yes.
I could have done it a third, fourth time. The same way like Paul
Well,
Simon does You Can Call Me Out Twice,
I know.
but
Which
it's a
is
lot of
maybe we're
Roxanne.
stinging at the idea, but it's a lot of Roxanne. I love Roxanne. You don't. But I also kept sitting there looking at him going, we have mutual friends, right? And being like, we got Delette,
Oh yeah,
we
that's
got
right.
Cherry.
Yeah, very true.
I'm like,
We have a lot of
that's awesome.
folks
So
in
that felt
common.
very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so there you
Excellent.
go.
Where does everything stand? You have a record coming out? Because I heard the single. I've heard a few singles. Are you teasing something bigger coming out soon?
Yeah, we have a record coming out in the second half of July. So it's a full.
Okay.
Nice, very soon.
And so it's a long story. The thing actually was recorded in 2014.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what's wrong with me for not having released it in the meantime. We went through. It was originally recorded as 8 songs, and I'd kind of gone back and forth thinking if I want to take the band in the studio, do a couple more songs. Then we did some touring in the meantime, and it just kind of sat there in this like lull of indecisiveness, which is normally not how I do things. And then in the meantime, just we trickled out a few singles, and then back in 2018, I got into this. I'd started to take an interest in virtual reality. And so a mutual friend who's also in the music business, he and I had been chatting about how VR is, nobody's really doing anything within the context of music.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of really interesting content being put out there, and then people are writing music to that content. But nothing was, at least at the time, nothing was happening in reverse. So this whole idea of making VR music videos didn't exist. So we said, hey, let's hold off on the album release. Let's make like a bunch of VR music videos. And this is one of these classic examples of sitting at a bar having an idea that you think is a great idea, that you think you can just come up with an end result with 90 days later. And it just isn't that easy, because back then it wasn't that simple to find people who can actually execute on making these kind of videos. So this in turn took like another year, we started to work with a couple of digital artists, and then COVID hit. And suddenly here we are in 2022, releasing this album 8 years later, which is ridiculous because I've probably written 5 albums worth of material in the meantime.
And I guess this is a dangerous question to ask after 9 years. Are you happy with it?
Yeah, I am actually, because I hadn't sat, especially during COVID, I hadn't listened to it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like it. I like it as much as I liked it back then.
That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Well, some things age well, some things don't. And some things are kind of in this in between place. Because, when you make records, so much of it is a reflection of your internal headspace at the time. And the dynamic that you have with the musicians at the time, et cetera. So there's a lot, and sometimes you capture something and and it still resonates after the fact. Other times you think you've got something really cool and you listen to it, a year later, 2 years later, like, that was no good. That sounds dated. Like, how some acts will put out albums or songs that just sound amazing at the time, and you listen to them 4 years later, you're like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
easy.
I mean,
It's definitely not something that I'd want to listen to today. So with this one, when I hear it, I still really like it.
It's good.
I don't know how the rest of the world feels about it, but if
you will soon.
yeah.
I will. You've got to get on the road and you've got to promote this and play these songs. It does help if you actually like the music.
So have your fans all known this has been sitting out there? Have they all been waiting and like freaking out in anticipation, or have you kept it kind of under the radar till now?
Well, yeah, I don't know that anybody's sitting on the edge of their seat and checking their email every day for if anybody was that anxious, they gave up a long time ago.
Dashing spirits since 2014.
Yes,
Perfect.
Yeah. But rebuilding them back up in 2022.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like trying to call the airline to change a ticket, to change a flight ticket after you get the busy signal only so many times.
Right. It's like, screw it, I'm just gonna go.
Yeah. So it's kind of so back in 2014, we put the news out, hey, new album's coming, and then put out a single, and then put out two more, I think, as kind of these little teasers, but they just got spaced so far apart, and I don't really expect the world to sit around waiting for a Love Crushed Velvet record when there's a lot of other good music and a lot of other great artists to pay attention to. So,
But I mean, to your point about listening to records that sort of, when you go back to them in a few years, they sound dated or the drums sound very strange. You're like, what was I thinking? This was a terrible idea. I mean, to live with all of the decisions you made, to have to go back to them on a regular basis. Like, usually you put out a record, you get to go play it, and then those songs become something else.
Right.
You haven't had that chance yet. So these things have been sort of just gestating, waiting to really go out and do something with them and take them somewhere else.
yeah,
You're
absolutely.
looking forward to that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're totally right. And especially the whole process of taking these things out on the road and playing them live. And a lot of, like, when I look back to the origin of Love Crushed Velvet back in, the first record came out in 2010, that album that debut album was really influenced by the band that I had played with previously, prior to recording that album, I'd put out an ALX solo album then. And a lot of times the band that I use in the studio is not always the band that I take on the road.
Sure.
And in this particular instance, I was playing live with a bunch of great players, and they of course, anytime in a band you change one of the parts in terms of one of the players, it's gonna feel a little different, even if they're playing the parts exactly. But they're gonna bring their own little subtle twists to it. And in this case, it was a completely different band playing than the one I'd taken into the studio, and that really influenced what ultimately became Love Crushed Velvet. And so one of my favorite ways to get a flavor of a band is this isn't so much of a performing a live thing as much as it is a rehearsal thing. And I take this into the studio now as well. Is you just jam out with nothing in particular. Just say, hey, play something in E, pick a tempo, 130, and just see what happens. And that does a number of great things. Number one, it lets everybody get comfortable with each other without having to necessarily fit into this confined framework of the songs that they're trying to learn. Which is, I mean, that's not a bad thing because you're all there to play certain songs, but at the same time, they're to enable the musicians, to give the musicians a chance to put their own stamp on it. You need to get a feel for who they are,
Sure.
what their playing style is. So a lot of times these open jams, you kind of get a sense of what you're dealing with, and we all get a sense of each other through that. And a lot of times that lends itself. Like, I do a lot of writing in those open jams, and I record them as well. And more often than not, something interesting will come out of it. It may not necessarily be something you want to put on the next Love Crushed Velvet album, but it's almost invariably something that has some value. You know, you can either put it in the, you can kind of put it in the little treasure chest of overflowing ideas that you one day hope to do something with. But
Right.
you know, that's what's your point. So with these songs, I think it'll be interesting to see what evolves, what comes out of them playing live. That's going to influence future work.
Yeah, will be very interesting. And you're heading out soon, right? Did I read that or did I misread that? Are you heading out to start playing them soon?
Soon as relative.
I know it's all relative.
You guys were in a
record soon as relative.
Yeah.
No, so we're doing so we're starting to book some dates in the summer now. We're doing an album preview show on the 28th of June in New York City. So any New Yorkers out there, you know, just drop whatever you're doing.
Right.
And then we're starting to put dates together after that. We just confirmed a date in Naples, Italy.
Nice. You've spent a lot of time in Italy, I saw in my stalking.
Yeah, I do. So, you know, I used to live there.
Nice.
And so I've gotten to know it well. I've still got a lot of friends there. I like the country. I've still got a little micro followings in a number of different cities there. And so we just got I literally just before we got on this call, just dotted the I's, crossed the T's on the show. So we are playing an old, sorry, I don't know how to shut that off.
No problem.
No problem.
We are starting to, so we booked this thing, it's basically in an old church in the old part of Naples that occasionally does performances there. And they've done a lot of really interesting things. They did this tribute to the Velvet Underground there recently, and they don't book that many shows. So I'm like super excited to do it because it's one of the more fun things about playing live is when you're playing in unconventional venues.
Yeah.
Because at this point, I've been doing this long enough, and you all have been to enough shows over the years that you know, there's different clubs have different twists to them.
Sure.
But you know, like 85% of them are just more or less a variation of the same theme, you know. And so occasionally you'll find these spaces. You walk in and you either both as a musician playing or just as a spectator going in, or as a fan or as a listener. You go in and it's you walk into a space and you say, "Hey, this is just really, really cool." And so when these things come along, I just try to if I can make it work realistically, then I just jump on it. So yeah, I'm going to be in Europe, and we'll be doing a couple of shows in Europe. And you know,
and you guys had,
a hard sell anyway.
And I would say you guys had done some dates in Australia too.
Yeah, that goes back to I think 2015, 2016, something like that.
Oh, really? That long ago?
Sorry? Oh yeah,
I was just going through the dates on the website. I guess I lost track of the calendar on the side and just kept scrolling.
We get to all our respective point in life. It's easy. It's easy to lose. But yeah, so we found so one of our songs got someone in Australia had come across it that was doing some really interesting things in kind of the community development / mental health space. So there's this whole, and I didn't know this at the time. So in Western Australia, it's mining is a huge, like iron ore mining is a huge industry there.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is, and then the way that things were set up, at least back then, is that you did have these mining camps where you would fly in workers for 3 weeks at a time. They would just get worked to the bone, albeit paid very well to be worked to the bone. Then go back to their families. They'd have like a couple of days to try to sort out their home life, and then they come back to the same grind. And those 3 week stretches while they're in Western Australia, there really wasn't anything for them to do. There were a lot of again, just mental health challenges, substance abuse challenges, et cetera. So I'd met someone who was trying to build and create sustainable communities out there. And part of building sustainable communities is having entertainment, giving people something to do at night other than just going to the bar and getting in fights, which
Heidi.
as I'd learned from one of the venues that we played there, that happens pretty often. So, you know, you get a bunch of big rowdy Aussies who've had a drink or five too many.
Oh yes, I know them well.
Yeah. And then and bad things can happen. So anyway, so they pitched this. So they really liked the music, and they said, hey, you know, you're. And at the time, I was really spending most of my time. We were really a New York band. Now we're kind of this, you know, post-COVID international, nomadic music collective. Whatever it is.
Mysterious.
Yeah. We just plug into a board wherever our feet happen to be planted at the time.
Fair.
So anyway, so she had this idea of, hey, you know, let's bring kind of an up and coming New York band to this really remote part of Australia that not only have most Australian bands never been there, most Australians themselves have never been there. And let's do a tour of all these mining towns, and then we'll stop in Sydney and Perth and Melbourne and a couple of the bigger cities while we're down there, to build a little bit of more awareness. But the whole idea was to really be doing this almost. Oh God, what was the name of the Mad Max movies? The Road Warrior. That's kind of like, you know, Road Warrior.
Right.
Road Warrior. And we ended up having a blast. We were treated really well. Met some lovely people. The whole thing had this very DIY quality to it, and it was great. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
That's excellent.
That's awesome. That's so fascinating how that all came together.
Well, it's also this realm of, look, when you go through life, it's so much, because we all look for reasons to say no. It's so much easier if you just look for reasons to say yes. And the whole thing, and you know, when stuff like this gets pitched to you, you're like, yeah, great idea. You know, it's call me when you're serious.
Right.
Kind of what I said. And like every week, the calls kept coming in, and after a few days, I go, hey, you know, this may be real. Let me actually make sure the guys are free in the band. I can go off and do this. So it was, but that was also kind of those unconventional settings we're talking about. We had to bring our own sound system to some of these places. A lot of these venues were just, they were kind of like joints where they weren't. Some of them were used to live music, others weren't. And so we just kind of, you know, set up and did our thing, and it got really well received.
That's awesome.
Got to play a daytime show in 45 degrees Celsius temperature.
Oh yeah, that had to be. Oh, I have been to that part, to Australia many times, and it is not. That part of Australia is not something to take lightly as far as the weather goes.
Oh yeah, but you know, you do that, and it's just you can't run away from it, so you might as well embrace it.
Just enjoy it. Just sweat away and rock out. I mean,
sure,
you're supposed to be a sweaty rock star. It's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not drenched when you're coming off the stage, regardless of the temperature, you're not doing it right.
Precisely. So see, it's perfect. So do you think you'll do other things like that? Just really, now that it's sort of happened and you've got these great unique venues, do you find yourself looking for other just different sorts of ways to either tour, or feel like you're like drawn to kind of this different way of doing things?
Yeah, for sure. So part of it is the music industry, the touring industry is in a weird state right now.
Right.
In that you have, I mean, we're one of pretty much every band, every live band on the planet that's been kind of cooped up, slamming ourselves against the walls, trying to break out of the cage and get on the stage. And if you kind of take the conventional venue route, there are only so many stages and so many.
Right.
So the challenge that we found was that it was like trying to book a tour now is really hard.
Yeah.
Because you'd have because so many slots are taken by this, because you're seeing the bands that 2 years ago were ready to kick off, were ready to get tours going. Those got canceled. Those are getting rescheduled. They're all the bands that have produced music in the interim that are trying to get out there and support that. So suddenly, like that world is super crowded, super saturated, and it really makes it tough to get consecutive bookings. So rather than so the original idea was, hey, let's go for the next 3 months, come up with some different tour schedules, do a 10-day run here, take a break a little bit, do a 10-day run here. And that's almost impossible to do because you can't do the back to back to back to back anymore. So so it's really forcing us to look at this a little bit more unconventionally, just like like for the European shows. Like I won't be able to take the current band that I'm playing with in New York right now there, because unless I can get enough dates consecutively lined up, I've got in some of these places, it's just me or one of the band members, and then we got to fill in with some local musicians.
Yeah.
Which
it's a
is
whole
fun
other
on one hand,
right.
but it's more challenging on the other, because you've got it's one more logistical thing you've got to manage, and it's a couple more rehearsals you got to put in.
Right.
It's by no means a complaint, but but it's forced us to really rethink what that touring paradigm looks like, at least in 2022.
And I mean, it seems like you, in the length of time it took you to make this record, you had a leg up on everybody kind of in this like stockpiling material going, like you said, I'll either get to this later or I'm just going to keep writing songs, where everybody had time to sit around and do that. You had a leg up to just do that more prior to this. How much stuff are you sitting on, and are you kind of eager to get back into the studio, and have you been back in since?
I mean the amount I'm sitting on is
It's got to be overwhelming.
well, so we've got another EP that we've got another EP that we recorded back in 2016 when we were supposed to do a follow-up tour in Australia. Actually, that was meant to be this is a long, crazy story, but some of our music was supposed to be featured on a reality TV show. And then along with the launch of that show, we're going to be brought back for another tour. There were some production issues with the show itself that had nothing to do with us. The tour ended up getting postponed and ultimately just never ended up happening. But in the meantime, I'd had the band booked for like this 10-day stretch. So we went to the studio and spontaneously recorded an EP there that hasn't been released yet. Another one that got recorded last year with a friend of mine, Keanu Kim, who's a writer, producer, used to play, did a couple of tours with Gwen Stefani as her guitarist, and he's got a couple of hits under his belt in his own right. So he and I finished an album last year, and then I had probably the weirdest writing. How's the best way to do that? I probably got into the weirdest writing rhythm that you've ever heard of. I ended up getting diagnosed with with a lung infection that requires, it wasn't a problem for me physically, but I did have to get it treated, and it's super hard to treat. Basically, you've got to be on antibiotics for like 6 months. And, me and like most musicians, doing the same, being disciplined about doing the same thing on a regimented basis, like most of us. Like, you're going to forget to take your antibiotics sometimes, a couple of days. So how did I decide that I'm going to discipline myself to do this? I said I'm going to set an alarm, not just to take my medicine, but when I take the medicine, I'm going to spontaneously write a song, and I'm going to capture that.
Man, that's a lot of pressure.
So do this for 180 straight days.
Jeez, oh Pete.
Yeah.
No matter how crappy of a songwriter you are, something good is going to come out of that.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's discipline.
So, well, I mean, I had to, because I just, I didn't want to be, I didn't want to have to redo this again at some point.
Right.
So now I've got like 180 song ideas, which are probably, I mean, there's two albums in there for sure. There's probably 5, but there's 2 good ones in there for sure. Started doing another project with 2 local musical friends. We've got stuff. So there's probably I hope I don't die in an accident because I'll be trying to crawl my way back into my body.
Yeah.
Songs.
I have to overdub that vocal. Yeah.
Just haunt someone who can do it.
Sorry, God. I mean, I hope it's God.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like your story there's so much of a template that a lot of musicians face is this, fountain of creativity and all this, ideas and and all this stuff just keeps coming and coming. And the challenges you have, before you add a pandemic to it, to getting people to hear the music, to getting out on the road, to being able to, like you said, put together dates so you can get a good band together. Is it worth it all for you at the end of the day?
Financially, absolutely not.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah, we know that one.
Yeah, we know that way too well.
Yeah.
But personally, absolutely. Because look, I'm a musician. I'm always going to be a musician. This is something I can't not write songs. Like I'll become like a weird train spotter in England or something like that. It's just that it keeps me normal. It keeps me sane. I can't not do it. That's the one I'm in my. That's when I do that. I'm in my element. So yeah, so I'll always do it. Obviously when you're recording, when you're making records, that's a whole other animal in terms of time commitment versus sitting down either with yourself or with other collaborators and writing a piece of music in and of itself. And I think all of us who've been doing this for a long time, I don't want to call it second nature, but that part of it, that's not the hard part about it. For a lot of young artists that are just trying to figure out how to write songs, for them, that's the hard part. And like for me, for the people I work with, that's not the hard part. And even making the records isn't the hard part. But the hard part about the challenge with making the records is it's a time and a resource thing.
Sure.
You get the players, you got to put the time into getting just developing the musical chemistry that you really feel resonates with the songs. There's it's just the whole tracking process, the overdubbing process. I enjoy it. I love every minute of it, but it's not something you do just in a couple hours. Like I'm very envious. So you remember the band, the Cowboy Junkies?
Of course.
So I think that one, this with the Trinity Sessions album that they made.
Yep.
So supposedly they just put up a few mics in a church and cut that in, I don't know if it's in a day or two, and then they went in and remixed it. And I'm always envious of people who make the records like that because I just don't. And the Love Crushed Velvet album is a very layered record. It's a very just a lot of musical parts of it. It's not this hyper progressive prog rock by any stretch, but there are a lot of layers to it when you strip those down, and that's time consuming. But at the end of the day, it's worth it, and that's also why I don't put out records once a year, because it's I take the time to really make sure that I'm happy with the end result, and if I end up in a situation like with this one where I'm listening to something that got recorded 8 years ago, I still like it.
Is it the way we talk? Is it the way we walk? Is it the way we fight in silence at night? Is it the space between?
For more information to hear their new single, The Future, and so much more, check them out online. They are at lovecrushedvelvet.com, or you can find them on Facebook, where they are at facebook.com/lovecrushedvelvet.
You can check us out on all the various socials. Be sure to visit our website at rockandrollgradschool.com, and don't forget to leave us a review.
Today's show is produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thank you, good night, and may all your favorite bands stay together.